Greetings, I'm Dave the Watchman, and welcome to the Insiders Roundtable presented by NerdBacon.com. We're joined today by two gentlemen who have been very influential in the Insiders community on social media, Golfing Buffalo and Stealth. With E3 2018 just days away, we wanted to get together and present not a spoilcast of what's going to happen at the big show, but a high-level overview of where the industry is heading in the next few years. As we prepare to celebrate the biggest event in gaming, we hope that you enjoy this fascinating look into the future. Welcome, everyone. This is the Insiders Roundtable. We're joined here today by two people who have kind of an insight into future trends that are happening with the video game industry. First off, we have Golfing Buffalo. Buffalo, do you want to say hi?
Hello, good morning.
All right. And next we have Stealth, who has a lot of insight into Nintendo Switch workings and what's going on with Nintendo. And I think, are you still trying to get the mic working there, Stealth?
I'm here.
You're here. All right. Excellent. Good morning, everybody. So what we're doing with this roundtable is kind of giving a high-level overview of some of the future trends that we expect to be seeing within the video game industry within the next maybe 2 to 3 years. So it's not really kind of a spoiler podcast or anything like that, but just kind of a high-level overview of what we might be looking forward to as we go forward. So to start off the discussion, there's a lot of rumors about PlayStation 5 development kits out there, and there's already been news about Microsoft developing their next console. So I just kind of want to put it out there. What does the term next generation gaming mean to both of you?
For me, next generation, it basically means just like the next product line that they're working on. It doesn't necessarily mean graphics to me, which I think is what it means to a lot of people.
Yeah, I would say I'm not really worried about graphics because you're getting to a point where you're reaching I think, for a dollar value, about as far as you can go, especially with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. How much better can the graphics get for people who don't have 4K TVs?
Yeah, and I mean, I do think they're working on stuff. I think Nintendo's probably working on Switch too right now, but you have to start like product development like 5 years out. Oh, I want to release my next gen system and then have it be next year. That's not how it really works. They're always working on something.
Right, of course. Yeah, and it takes a long time to get from concept to market. So I actually think for me, the next gen will be more, it'll still be a new hardware of some sort, but it'll be the services and the software that is a different concept, whatever it is. So like if it's switched to with faster processor, better graphics, but will it be 5G and always connected online? Will it be something that is different than the way that we've done things for almost 40 years? I don't actually think it's always going to be sitting tethered in front of your TV somehow.
Do you think other manufacturers are going to try and explore that mobility aspect that Nintendo has so well captured with the arrival of the Nintendo Switch?
I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see another handheld system from Sony, and certainly not from Microsoft.
I don't think so either. I think that would be kind of foolish. I do think that Microsoft at least will try to offer Xbox Game Pass streaming through PC, probably eventually iPad, and then that's how they will consider it mobile.
So how do you think other manufacturers, how do you think Sony and Nintendo are going to be able to combat that? Because that's really pushing your library out to such a huge swath of people who wouldn't normally have access to it and may not actually go out and just buy a console. How does Sony and Nintendo combat that?
Well, for me, I think that I don't think Nintendo necessarily needs to. Like, I view Nintendo as a separate entity. Um, I think I think ultimately Sony has to partner with one of the larger companies. And I think that has to be probably Amazon or Google. Tencent would be another possibility. Someone who would give them the access to be able to bundle their services together. Unless they can come up with like the next big thing, which is always in the pipeline. I've seen some of their R&D stuff online, some concepts they're working on with holograms and things, and that was really
Mm.
interesting. Uh, but I think that for them, it's bundle of services is the answer. They can bundle PlayStation View, their TV service, um, with their PSN, offer some games with it as well. Their streaming service, I can't think of what it's called. I haven't seen it in a long time. The one they bought from OnLive. And I think for Nintendo, they just have to do what they do and just keep innovating. And Nintendo's an interesting niche because it sells to children and it also sells to older Blue Ocean people or hardcore Nintendo fans. Um, so I don't actually think everything should be streaming. I think that, having a physical copy or downloaded copy on your machine is a great way to play games, especially for kids.
Right.
And so I would imagine that Nintendo just keeps doing what they do.
And Nintendo sells a lot, like pretty much like 90% of their games physically. So all of a sudden they aren't just going to switch to streaming mostly.
Do you think an industry that is shifting more towards streaming, do you think that's going to be detrimental to Nintendo's success maybe 5, 10 years down the road?
Because people still like buying physical games. Um, for like the major releases, most game sales are still physical. So we aren't at that point yet where it's really threatening.
Yeah, I don't think in the next 5 years it's a threat to Nintendo at all. Like farther out, yeah, probably they have to adapt. But like Stealth said, I didn't know it was 90%, but I know that Nintendo physical
Pretty
sales
close to
are,
that. The majority of their sales are physical.
yeah, right. I knew it was really high though. So yeah, I think that that'll be really interesting, uh, how that changes over time, but I don't think Nintendo is in any danger at all. I would say that Sony's in far more danger than Nintendo.
Well, speaking of Sony, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Sony for a moment here. What were some of the weaknesses of the PlayStation 4 generation that you feel Sony could rectify with the coming PlayStation 5 generation?
Honestly, don't think PlayStation 5 has that many weaknesses. Most of the things that I would think of are kind of a little nitpicky, because they have to do with the software, and that's kind of like that's just my personal opinion. But I'd like to see them less be less kind of willing to just do so many revisions. I feel like they've done just way too many revisions in such a short period of time for a console. They had the original PlayStation 4, then they had a model with slightly different parts, but it's generally the same, but a little bit better. So it made some people think, they got a lesser model. Then they had the Slim, then they had the Pro. I think they would do better to just stick with one version for longer.
I agree. My issue with it was also the software. Um, Now it's less of an issue in other parts of the world than North America, but for like a TV box, the PlayStation 4 fails miserably. For the streaming apps, like it does not have the suite of streaming apps that a Roku does, Xbox does, a Apple TV does. So to me, and this is another thing about the next gen, like I think that no matter what it is, you want people to touch your product every day. It doesn't matter if they game on it, if they watch TV on it, if they do something else on it. It just needs to be touched. The more you touch it, the more valuable it becomes. And so for Sony, that's why I think ultimately they will partner with someone like an Amazon or a Google who can help them in areas where they're not strong. Uh, I don't think they do it willingly at first, uh, but I do think that they will have to consider those options going forward. I also think my other nitpicky thing about Sony software, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft each have one strength. Sony's strength is single player games. It's always been like that. If you look at it traditionally on every generation Sony system, uh, by and large, their best experience is a single player adventure game. I would like to see them branch out and have just different areas like a multiplayer game, uh, every just different things, uh, MMO or something. Again, where that's a strength for them going forward. I just don't know how they do that exactly because they've done one thing for so long and they're very good at it. So I'm not sure how they monetize that and can course correct the ship going forward.
So, how do you think a partnership between Sony and a Google or an Amazon, what would that partnership look like?
To me, it's they're going to use the Amazon software. I'll just stick with the Amazon. They're going to use the Amazon software. They'll use Amazon Prime. They'll probably include Alexa, and they'll make it the AI of the system so you can talk to it. You know, why couldn't you just go on your phone somewhere and tell, hey, Alexa, download this demo or buy this game remotely and have it download? You could do that now on Sony, I believe. Um, but I don't think it's as user friendly. I also think that there is something to say if you could say, hey, Alexa, boot up Fortnite and or God of War, and then say, okay, now I'm going to watch the newest episode of The Simpsons. Like, I think there's something to be said for that. I also think there's something to be said for the integration that Amazon could do because they own Twitch. So I think there's a lot of avenues you could go there with that, and make it go above and beyond. Like Microsoft, if you use the Xbox for the mixer that they own, which is their Twitch competitor,
Mm-hmm.
um, Xbox does some really amazing stuff. I think the software is a little convoluted, but the opportunity to do things from the Xbox, you don't need $1,000 hardware to do things from the Xbox. The Xbox can do it for you, and I think that that's impressive. I would assume that Mike or Sony would do something similar.
With the emergence of 5G technology coming within the next few years, do you see? I know Stealth, you said that Sony probably would not have another handheld system, but do you see any type of portable element coming into play with the PlayStation 5 launch?
I really don't. I think they're going to stick with what they know, and that's cutting edge system.
So no hybrids or anything like that.
And definitely no hybrid.
Golfing Buffalo, what about you? What do you think on that subject?
I would be surprised if they did. I mean, I think it would be kind of neat, but I don't think so. I think that the thing with Sony is that I just don't think that they take that financial risk. Um, Again, because that could be very costly for them. Uh, I just don't think that they do that. I think that they do something more powerful than the Xbox One X, something they can sell for $399, and then they, say, hey, we have the most powerful machine out there, plays the best games, and they give you their usual spiel about, we have the most third parties, we have this and that. Come by our system, and they write off the PlayStation name, that's what I would do if I ran their company. I mean, it's really smart. Um, I just don't know if they can innovate the same way that Nintendo can or Microsoft can. And Microsoft and Nintendo both do it in very different ways.
Do you gentlemen believe Sony when they say that the PlayStation 5 is still 3 years off?
I think it's probably 2 years off. 4 is still selling like crazy. I don't know why they'd want to prematurely end that sales cycle.
So 2020 launch is when you think we should expect to see something on PlayStation 5.
I always thought it would be between September 2019 and like spring of 2020. I think Nintendo showed something launching in the spring, and I think that that was really smart. Um, I They probably did it for financial reasons to get some money into the end of their fiscal year, but let the early adopters buy it so they don't have to fight for it over the holiday. And so if you can do that, I think that that's when Sony should launch. It doesn't have to be, 2020. Um, and I do believe that it's stealth. I agree, probably about 2 years. Um, the only reason I would think that they would hold off, I guess, is if something has changed in the industry, if there's something large that is not known to the public, but they know about, and it's making them reassess what they're doing.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Let's move on to Microsoft real quickly. We kind of touched on Games Pass momentarily a little bit ago, but how do you gentlemen see Microsoft's Game Pass service evolving in the near future?
I think it becomes a streaming service, and it becomes the Netflix
Streaming
of
service
games.
too.
Yep, and it's smart, like really smart. So it takes it's no longer about Xbox as buying a system. It's about a platform. And if it's not even about taking on Nintendo or Sony. It's about the kid who has a low spec PC or Mac who can't run those games. And if you can get it out on iPad, and you can stream your games on there with a Bluetooth Xbox controller, how awesome is that? It gives kids and adults such variety. And Xbox One's strength is Xbox Live. Xbox Live is far and away the most efficient and best online service. And while you can debate how important that is, I think for the people who game on Xbox, it's critical. I think that is the selling point to buying Xbox. I think it is more so than any franchise that Microsoft has.
Do you see a future where the actual console for Microsoft, the actual Xbox, is not important? Do you see them maybe one day down the line getting out of the hardware business and just offering games through that Xbox Game Pass service?
I personally still think they do hardware. I honestly, like Stella said, it takes a really long time to go from concept to product, finished product. I would imagine if it that they have multiple products in the pipeline,
Do
and
you think
that
investors want Microsoft to get out of hardware and get out of gaming in period? But um, I think out of like the big three, like to just get out of hardware entirely. But yeah, I think they'll probably move to streaming.
yeah, I think Stella's right. I do think though that maybe they come up with an Apple TV style box eventually that they can sell at a lower cost and be like, hey, come buy our services, sign up through Microsoft, and they can tie everything all in, like all the different services, because cloud services for Microsoft is becoming their biggest industry. They've done a great job, and Microsoft's in a period of transition where they're going from Windows and PCs being their biggest service to now it'll be clouds and servers. And so that it's an amazing transition, honestly, from a business standpoint, that they're able to do this. But I agree with Stealth that maybe eventually the investors will just want them out of the hardware completely because it's a loss leader for them. They're not making the money back. But I still think that before that happens, for the next Xbox, if they decide not to go with the super most advanced tech, and I don't think they need to. I think that they come out with like some sort of Apple TV style device that does everything.
Do you see Sony and Microsoft moving away from physical media anytime soon? And I ask that because we kind of speculated with the end of Best Buy's Game Pass, or not Game Pass, but Gamers Club service, and the ending of their magazine, it seems like maybe they might know something is coming down the pipeline. Like maybe Sony and Microsoft are going to offer at least one SKU that is going to be diskless, and maybe there'll be a premium SKU that'll still have physical media. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're coming quickly upon a future where Sony and Microsoft ditch physical media?
I don't think we're anywhere close to that point, honestly.
I don't think that either. Not right now. Like GameStop is vital. I mean, we all, laugh, and there's an article every day about the demise of GameStop, but GameStop and Walmart too, which is funny this week. But those two stores are vital to the survival of gaming and the growth of gaming, because they, at least in the United States, represent such a large percentage of game sales, and they also provide currency for people to trade in their games and get credit towards, whatever the new game is that they want. And so I think that is vital, that type of situation sticks around for a while. I'm not all in yet on selling your digital copy back to, like, I believe Steam offers that, and I'm not in on that yet. I don't quite understand how you're going to do that.
But do you think that there's an attraction to going towards more of a digital media future, especially considering how Steam has revitalized the PC market? You really don't see too many physical games on the PC side anymore. Everything's just done through Steam or any of the other clients that are out there.
I don't think so exactly. I think that they would like to, ideally, because it's more revenue for them potentially. But again, though, there's a lot of factors in play there. You have to look at the economics of it, and I don't think they do that in the short term. I think that PS5 still takes physical media. The other thing you have to watch is the larger these download sizes get. If you live in an area that has data caps, that becomes an issue. I saw yesterday, for example, State of Decay 2's patch is 20 gigs. I've heard that State of Decay 2, the install is about 20 gigs. So that's 40 gigs. I live in a rural area outside Philadelphia, and I have a data cap every month of 800 gigs. If I wanted to buy, I believe Halo 5 is like 120 gigs-ish. I know it's over 100. That cuts into my total data allowance for the month before I start getting charged. So that would play a major factor to me. And I think it does to other people as well. So unless they have unlimited data, the game companies have to factor that in as well. Nintendo is brilliant in that regard. They keep their games really small. They're unintrusive. I can't say enough about that. Like, that impresses me about Nintendo, and the way they protect kids always impresses me. So it is impressive from that standpoint. So Nintendo doesn't have to worry about it. Their coding is good. Sony and Microsoft have to figure out a way, if they want to go to a non-physical media, just strictly digital download, of how to keep those data, or keep that file size down. And I don't think that they can do that yet.
And that's a really great point. That kind of shoots down the next question that I was going to ask, but I'll still put it out there. Do you see companies going the EA route? And let's start with this. How important do you think EA's move, their recent move, where they just purchased some of the technology behind the streaming aspect of GameFly? So how important do you think that move is?
I'll let Stealth go first. I've been talking a lot.
I don't think it's really that important, honestly.
You don't think that there's
There's a lot of, business moves that happen, and people and companies try and buy other companies, but yeah, people like to talk about more change than is seen in the market a lot of the time.
Do you think there's the possibility though that EA creates its own streaming platform and they're able to? I don't think that they would do this, but do you think that there could be the possibility where they could just bypass uh, console manufacturers like Sony and Microsoft altogether in the future with their own platform, their own delivery system?
This does pretty good for them in the PC realm, but in terms of console, they still need, you know, Sony especially.
Sure. Golfing Buffalo, what about you? What do you think about that?
Well, Stell's right. Like the one thing that I thought that he said was really smart was um, he just said that, these are like concepts, high level concepts. And to go from the ideas that we're talking about to implementing them, that takes a long time. So I don't think any of these things, even Microsoft Game Pass streaming, comes this year. Like that's a year or two off. I think they keep expanding it as a download service, but it takes a long time to get there. I think that for EA, same thing. I think that they look at having the type of streaming service like EA Access, or maybe put their sports games on there annually. I think that they will continue to do that. They just have to invest in the streaming, just like everyone else, just as a precaution and also as an opportunity.
I see. What do you think Nintendo's recently announced Nintendo Online service is going to look like in the next couple of years?
I honestly don't know. I think they'll keep adding their NES game collection and probably eventually SNES.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that they get voice chat and things worked out. For them, though, I think it's weighing the cost benefit of how to protect kids and consumers from the toxic gaming online culture. And I think Nintendo does the best job of that. Sometimes I think they go overboard. I just don't know how they do that exactly with their Nintendo Online, how that'll manifest itself in the future, especially if Xbox Live decides to go free. Like then I think it becomes an interesting argument, like you're actually going in reverse. So I'm not sure what will happen exactly. What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's going to be along the same lines that you said. They're going to continue adding on their library. I don't think it's going to be as robust as a virtual console is, and I think that's going to make a lot of people upset. But I think they've got a really good thing going with the NES and the Super NES classics, and soon to be the N64 classic. And I think they can go all the way up to like a GameCube classic, and then they can just keep releasing revisions of those. In an odd way, I think it's less risky to do that than it is to spend the time and energy of getting a game out and hosting it on your server and hoping somebody, a few people pay $5 for that game, than it is to say, hey, here's this new package that plays upon your nostalgia and your love of video games and your love of Nintendo, and it's got all this stuff that we've just pre-packaged in there. I think that's a little bit smarter for them than going the virtual console route. But you'll still see some releases on there, but like I said, it's just not going to be the robust thing that we've seen before. What concerns me is how good is that online infrastructure going to be? Is it going to be comparable to something like PlayStation or Xbox Live, in that Nintendo assists developers in getting their game online and creates a seamless online experience for players playing those third-party games? That, I think, is the big question mark.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to keep pushing the classics along. I don't know, though, if they're going to do a GameCube classic. I kind of think they don't. I think they do a handheld classic instead.
Yeah, I would definitely see them doing like a Game Boy Classic and then going to a Game Boy Advance Classic.
Well, I think everything leads up to a Wii Classic, right? And then like the Wii Classic, I think they know that if it hits on an anniversary date, they can put that out and that could sell huge for them and sell it for
Sure.
129 or whatever. Um, and they can try to get that Wii money again. Same with the DS. I think that they know that too, like a DS Classic. They could try to make big money off that. I think though, in terms of their just online, I think it's a wait and see, just because we don't really know yet. We have to see what the finished product looks like in September when it launches. How many people, adapt to it? Do third parties use the service? How all that works. I will say this though, like when I originally saw them present this and they showed that the chat had to go through the app on the phone, I thought that that was brilliant and I loved it because I thought, okay, they're taking the kids out of the equation. Either you have to go get mom and dad's phone or you're an older person who already has a phone. So,
Right.
and that's the way I think they viewed it. Yes, okay, not everyone can get on there and chat. So you don't have little kids on there and worrying about, some stranger talking to them. And you don't have like foul mouth high school kids on there yelling and screaming if they don't have a phone themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's exactly why Nintendo did that, much to the chagrin of a lot of people, but it was still a smart move from a protection standpoint. Well,
Right. And I actually think that they all should think about that philosophy. Um, like if Microsoft went to that too, I'd be okay with that. I'd be like, okay, I mean, you need to find a less convoluted way of having all the cords hooked up, but because we've all seen those pictures where like there's a million cords going every which way.
oh yeah,
But
absolutely. That's what my office looks like actually. So,
sure. And so, um, but yeah, I think that that is a really smart way to do it. Just keep the kids protected. Um, but again, though, you have to make it less intrusive for the older people who are trying to utilize it.
let's move on real quick to the subject of the Titans. So there's been some speculation that we're going to have the impending arrival of Titans like Apple or Amazon or Google. We've talked about that a little bit already. Who, in your opinion, would arrive first? Would it be Apple, Amazon, or Google?
Historically, Apple never goes first. Well, since the iPhone. Um, but I think that they do go first this time. I think that there's rumors out there that they've already hired some of the developers of the PS4 to help design the next Apple TV. And I think that I don't know if they just dip their toe in the water or if they jump in full force. Um, but I think that the next Apple TV plays games, like real games, not mobile games. Um, I think it'll also play mobile games though. I think it's going to do both.
I would
I
think it
would
would. Sorry, I would think that it would have to do both because I don't think that they've got the robust development that someone like Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo would have.
correct. I think that though they can reach out to third parties, I don't think Apple will ever make their own games. I think that
Mhm.
seems counterintuitive for Apple. I think that they just say, okay, come put your games on our service and we'll heavily promote it on the App Store. Uh, Same way that they go after mobile games. Uh, this fact I can give you: apps on the App Store make 10 times dollar for dollar on average what they make on the Google Play Store.
Wow.
And if you think about that for a minute, I just heard that stat the other day and it was true. So gaming on the App Store makes $10 for every dollar that the Google Play Store makes. Like that's crazy.
That is crazy. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I always viewed it as, well, okay, I do actually think I know. I well, I think it's because, and I can't say this definitively, but I think because there's so many different SKUs of Android phones out there, it's harder to optimize the game for all the SKUs.
Mm.
So I think that you get some games that run really bad on Android phones or won't barely run at all. And on Apple, because they only keep it for a certain window of time and there's less SKUs, I think it's easier to optimize the games. Um, I know that Google does the same thing, and all these developers say, oh, well, the game will run for a certain amount of time on the Android platform. But there's a million SKUs and they're all slightly different, like the LG phone, the Samsung phone,
Sure.
the and I think that based on the HTC phone. So I think based on that, though, I think it makes it increasingly difficult for developers to optimize those games for all those different platforms. It would be very daunting of a task. On Apple, you might be like, okay, iPhone 6 and up. And so you start with the lowest common denominator, optimize it there, and work your way up.
And is that really how we see kind of next gen gaming development going within the next few years? You start seeing them use the PlayStation 4 Pro as the lowest common denominator, and then okay, so it'll work on Pro and it'll work on PlayStation 5, and then an eventual PlayStation 5 Pro, but it won't work on the original PlayStation 4.
That's a good point. I actually think that now that you say that, that is a strong possibility because I think the way Sony entices gamers to stay on the Sony platform next gen is they'll say, okay, we don't want cross-play with Xbox or Nintendo, but you can cross-play with PS4, PS5, and PC, and potentially mobile. And so I think that that is how they probably do it, I guess. Because we've all had these discussions before. We've heard the game makers or the software platform holders talk about, hey, there won't be exclusives on PS4 Pro or Xbox One X. Don't worry, you don't have to upgrade. But maybe that's how they do that then. Maybe they say, come buy PS5 or PS4 Pro and play these games that are cross-play with each other on these systems exclusively.
That's a really good point. And I think that would be, I don't know if that would be smart or not, actually. I was going to say it would be smart,
I don't
but
know if it is smart, honestly, because I think it kind of,
it would definitely turn things on its head because we're all used to here's the new platform, everybody move to this platform. And then it's completely the opposite of that. It's saying, here's the new platform, everything is going to look better. You don't have to move to it if you don't want to. Obviously, you'll
yeah,
have a contingent of people who will move over to it, but
yeah. The more that you and I talk about this, the less I think that that's a smart move
mhm.
because it gives you incentive to not go buy the new box, and they need the new box to be a massive success. So that's probably not a smart way to do things. But I still think they do cross play with it, um, so that they can say, "Hey, you can still play with your friends. Don't
Right.
worry." And I think that that's smart because it try to keep them locked into that ecosystem. It's the same way how Microsoft failed this gen, based on a number of reasons. But people, one of their buying points was, "Hey, I have all my friends on Xbox Live. I want to stay with my friends."
Do you think it would be something that developers would prefer, though? Because instead of having to develop a previous gen version and then develop a PlayStation 5 next gen version, they're just developing kind of one version and using past hardware as a baseline.
I think they do. Like especially if you use like Unreal Engine 4, like you can scale it up and add more things to the environment, more shaders, um, and it just does more, and it's easier to do that then, or any software engine that's scalable like that. What I don't know if it happens is when I say that though, like I think that the Switch is a different entity,
Right.
even if it runs on Unreal. So um, I think that that's its own. We have to talk about that separately. But for the next gen, yeah, I would say that they're going to look for ways to just scale it across multiple systems easily because creating those games are getting more and more expensive. And like we had talked about earlier, I think that there's less games, not more. And I think that they need to hit like movies. Like if you look at like back in the 90s, you had a ton of movies and tons of games on every console because the development wasn't that expensive of those products. So now we have less movies than ever, but more blockbusters than ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's kind of the trend that gaming goes into for the most part. I still think that you're going to have some small titles that are just hits that, kind of, even if they know that they're going to be hits, that are cost less, that are like mobile and cross-platform games. Trying to think of an example right now. Fortnite's a good example, even though I don't know what the development cost of Fortnite was. When they created the mobile version, that was brilliant. And I think that that's the general trend you see going forward, is that you see things that can do both. You have to have a reason. It goes from being a game to being a franchise. So you got to have reasons to touch it all the time. Or a brand, I guess, would be it should be a brand.
Sure.
So if you're playing mobile on the go, hey, you're playing Fortnite. And when you get home on your console, you're playing Fortnite. And your stats go across both systems, and you have incentive to keep playing. How do you think that ends up going? Do you think it goes that way, or do you think it goes somehow different, and they just kind of keep pushing along with keep reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch?
I think at least with this generation, I think they reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. But I'm starting to see it go more towards a streaming platform as we move forward. So the actual console itself becomes less important than the service. So I want something that can play my Xbox Live service, and whether that's going to be on an Apple TV box or if that's going to be on the next Xbox, I think just having the service is going to be the most important thing. So maybe beyond this console generation, and that was kind of was one of the questions that I was going to ask was, do you see this coming console generation as the last console generation?
I don't know. I think it's the last one where the box is tethered to the TV.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everything's changing so much, and we have such a priority of being on the go and having the devices be portable. I think that that's a definite. I think that you no longer, because you have to think by that time it'll be 40 years of being tethered to the TV, from like early 1980s on with the Atari all the way to today. In
Right.
some way or another, you were tethered to the television, and that's crazy. 40 years. I think that, however that manifests itself, if it's streaming and you can play it on the iPad or on your laptop and also play it on the TV, awesome. If it's, hey, there's a mobile tie-in game and you play it on your phone, that's awesome too. But I think the days of, hey, for me and you to play together, I need to be at home in front of on the couch, I think those days are coming to an end.
Sure. And to me, I think that's really how gaming is able to evolve, at least in the next half decade to decade. I'm not really sure how else gaming can evolve. I mean, we had kind of the virtual reality fad of the past couple of years, and that didn't really take off. What do you think gaming could do beyond virtual reality and beyond service-based gaming? How do you think gaming can evolve beyond what it is right now?
Well, I have two things. I think ultimately virtual reality is a fad, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it pans out to be anything super profitable. My reason for that is it's too inclusive. Um, you're standing around in your living room or bedroom or wherever you are, and you're isolated by yourself with a headset and a controller, and and it's really weird that way.
Right.
I think AR is far better. Like Pokemon Go is a good example, right? You can be outside with everybody, and you're out there trying to catch your Pokemon together, looking at each other, laughing, whatever, walking together. And I think that that is a brilliant idea. And I think that,
Absolutely.
I can tell you from what I read in articles that Apple is like doubling down on the AR over the VR, and I think that that's smart. And I think I read an article where even Nintendo was too. Like they were heavily looking at AR technology, And Microsoft has too. Remember the HoloLens and everything?
I was just
That
going to say
was
that actually.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all AR based, and that's more inclusive. And I think that's the key to everything. It has to be inclusive. The other thing I think it goes, which is like a high level concept, and I know that a lot of developers don't think the world's ready for this, but it's gaming as programming is what I call it, uh, where video game companies set games on certain every day. So like Wednesday night is Fortnite. Wednesday nights, and you come play, and these streamers and Microsoft or Sony may pick up your game and be broadcasting it and have professional commentators talking about it. And maybe you win some sort of online loot of some sort. I don't know, some sort of prize, or even maybe a game. Maybe you win something tangible. I don't know. And I think that that's how they do it. Because like if you had something every night of the week, just like TV programming does. So like if you were
Sure.
like Fox, and you said, okay, I'm Microsoft, I'm going to mimic Fox. On Monday nights, it's Full House Poker. We're going to play poker again. On Tuesday nights, it's bowling. On Wednesday nights, it's Fortnite. On Thursday nights, it's FIFA. On Friday nights, it's Halo. And maybe you can replay whatever that is anytime you want. Like, so let's say you work those times and you can't play those games, or you have school or whatever. Maybe you can come and play it anytime you want, but it's not streamed. So 1 versus 100. Remember that trivia game?
Right.
That's a great example. You could run a season of that, and I think it runs in seasons too. I should have explained that. So I think that you have like 2-month seasons or so of games, and something different happens every week. So if it's 1 versus 100, you get a new set of trivia questions every week for that season. And it comes on from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Wednesday nights or whatever night it is. And so everyone can log online, play together. It's really social. And then if you're not available, you can play it whenever you want later. And I think that is ultimately how gaming grows. I think it grows leaps and bounds that way, but you have to change the mindset of everyone.
Right.
And I think,
go ahead. Sorry.
oh, no. And I was just saying that even for like companies like Nintendo, like I think that replaces Saturday morning cartoons for kids. Like, hey, get up and play Minecraft together, play Splatoon together. Like, I think that I don't think it runs the same time schedule that like an Xbox or a Sony does. But I think ultimately, though, I think that there is huge money in that. Huge.
And I absolutely agree. I think that's such a brilliant idea, and one way to, I don't know if I'd say revitalize, but really just give it an extra push towards streaming and really help some streamers out. Actually, it's really cool because it would give a spotlight to streamers that you may not actually tune in to watch at a normal time. You would help build new stars that way. Game streaming is the future. It's kind of the future that's the reality right now, but it's only going to grow as we continue on. I feel like broadcast television is pretty much dead at this point. Most of the advances that we're seeing in the television sector are being made through streaming services like Netflix, investing so much money in original series, and Hulu, and it's changed the way people watch television because now they can binge watch TV instead of having to sit and wait week after week for the next episode.
Right. And I think that I actually still think the most money is in television, and I don't think that's going to change.
Oh, really?
I think the way we watch television is changing, of course. And I actually think that, to me, and I don't have any analytics to back this up, television money is far more profitable than even movie money. You have a longer period of time to develop your story and characters. I do think that all seasons of TV is too long. It should be like 8 to 10 episodes a season.
Right.
And so the same way with gaming, though, like I think that two different things with streaming, like streaming the game So like Xbox Game Pass may do in the future versus like Twitch streaming. And like Twitch streaming for younger kids is huge. I saw that stat, which I know you and I talked about, that on an average night, more people are watching Twitch than any NBA or NHL game. And I find that amazing.
Right, right.
And so I think that you're right. I think that they figure out some way to get this kids to stream on there. And I think the best way to do it is if they could monitor all the games and hop in on these games that are like games as services with lots of players. And then you have professional commentators who come in and we'll talk about, so that maybe you get mentioned. Maybe you do something awesome and it gets mentioned live on Twitch and everyone can see it, or on Beam. And I keep calling it Beam. I think it's called Mixer.
It's Mixer now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's
Beam
all
is
right.
something else for them. I don't know what that, I can't remember what that is. But yeah, so I think that that's really a smart way to engage kids and adults too. Like it's like your own little 15 minutes of gaming fame because you're, winning Fortnite or winning Full House Poker, 1 versus 100, and you might be on there, and they might have 100,000 people watching or whatever it may be in the future.
And I think it's another good way to highlight and push esports as well, which is only exploding in popularity.
Correct. I think that sports games and esports games are one of the keys to the next gen. Same as the TV as programming thing that we were just talking about. I think that those concepts are massive because I could make the argument to you, and I don't have the analytics to back it up, and I know that the analytics will not be on my side. But I would say that you do not need a professional license. So, like, I would argue you could make a basketball game that would be more successful than without the NBA license than having the NBA license. I think that it would just have to be like a rec league, like where you go online and you are John Doe who mimics you in real life, and then maybe you can earn or microtransaction. You can buy a Jordan jersey or a LeBron jersey or whatever, but you play in this live league every week, and with everyone who's real players, and you watch your character grow and develop based on the way you play, and it also advances you to better leagues with similar people who play, I guess, similar experience level. And I think that you could make the argument for that with sports games, that would like a real life sports league and let kids and adults play in that. I think that could be immensely popular. I also think it also would promote esports that way, so that, hey, you're not playing NBA 2K in this esports league, and everyone is the Golden State Warriors or the Houston Rockets or the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mm-hmm.
It's, hey, I've put this time in, and look at me, I'm John Doe, the virtual character of myself, and I've put the time in, and I'm the Michael Jordan of this league, or I'm the LeBron James of this league. And I think that is really compelling.
I agree. And do you think the world is ready for that though?
I don't know. Like that's like a high level concept, and it would take a while to implement that. So I don't know. I think that as we go into the next gen, I think that that's something that they start to look at, because it lets you create your own virtual character. Your own virtual character becomes the star. You're not paying to mimic someone else in real life.
Right.
But Microsoft kind of already tried to do this. They just implemented it poorly, and I don't think that the world was ready for it when the Xbox One launched. If you remember that the Xbox One was everything really other than the streaming that we're talking about here today. It had set up play times so that you could see what Microsoft recommended. Hey, everyone go play Halo at this time. They had like this TV schedules laid out for TV and games. And even the TV shows were interactive. If you remember, just like Nintendo did it too with TV on the Wii U.
Right.
You're supposed to be able to answer like trivia questions and cheer together when you watch sports and stuff. And like those ideas, those concepts are great. And I think that those are the type of things that are next gen.
Well, thanks so much. We're just about out of time here. With E3 2018 only 1 week away, I just wanted to ask one question about the upcoming extravaganza. And that would be, what is your greatest fear as we head into E3 2018?
I would say for me, it would be that I'm not really I'm interested in seeing games, of course, but I'm more interested in seeing the quality of games, and I also want to see the trend that they're going in. So I would really want to see, for me, I want to see what third-party support for Nintendo looks like. That would be mine. Um, I would also, three things I want to see. I want to see what third-party support looks like for Nintendo. I want to see the evolution of Microsoft's Xbox OS and Game Pass. So I want to see how they evolve that. I personally think that the Microsoft Xbox OS needs a complete overhaul. It's too convoluted, and I'm hoping they show that. If they just add more features on and keep it convoluted, I don't think that helps them at all. For Sony, I just want to see. I think you get an idea of what they're thinking after this E3 and Tokyo Game Show. From the standpoint of, if they don't show you a lot of new games, maybe then you start to say, okay, maybe if they're not showing the type as quality or content of games that they've showed in the past, maybe they have people working on the PS5. Maybe those dev kits are out there in the wild, and they know that maybe 2020, even late 2020, early 2021, the system launches. So yeah, I think that is what I would probably be most interested in seeing. I'm interested in seeing a couple other things as well. But those would be my fears, that you come out and Nintendo shows you, hey, we don't really have a lot of third-party support. Microsoft says, hey, we haven't innovated the OS, and no one's going to use it because you have all these features baked into it, but no one knows how to do it. And Sony comes out and says, hey, these are our games, and we're really not thinking about the future. We're just going to push along with the single-player content and try to keep it status quo. How about you? What do you think you're going to see, or your fear of seeing?
I think my fear is a little bit more selfish. I love leaks. I love getting those little tidbits and everything, but then I also worry every E3. I always worry that there's not going to be any surprises. I love my E3 surprises. I love my E3 wild and shocking. And so I'm a little bit worried. I get a little worried every year that everything's been spoiled, and that E3 is just going to be kind of mundane. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I'd say for the big three, I'd say my fear is that Microsoft doesn't show any evolution with Games Pass and doesn't show any advancement in creating original software. They've got the great thing going with Games Pass, and I think Games Pass is going to lead them into the future. But that future is going to be short-lived if they don't start getting original content. And I really thought they would be able to do that last year, and it was really disappointing that they didn't. All the hoopla was around the Xbox One X, and it's a beautiful piece of hardware, but there really isn't anything compelling about the Xbox One X other than it's just powerful. There was no big game or anything like that to really induce people to buy that. So
Sure.
my big hope is that Microsoft finally opens the floodgates and say, hey, we've opened up the wallets. Here's some Japanese games for us. We've been working on revitalizing our development studios. Here's, new Crimson Skies, something that's not Halo and Forza Motorsport, So
Right.
that's one of my fears. I worry that Nintendo. I'm always worried that Nintendo's going to have a misstep. I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen, but I just hope that they have some more beyond just Smash and Pokemon to show us. And
Yeah, I'm a notoriously harsh grader on these things.
right.
I still think you do see Forza though. I think that that's too crucial of a brand for them, for Microsoft. And I agree with you. You worry about Nintendo having a mishap. I don't think they do because like they show Pokemon, they show Smash, they show Fire Emblem. All right, so then you already know that they're going to have a big. Those are some big sellers for the second half of the year.
Sure.
They all come out, which we assume they will. Um, I just worry that then they say, okay, here's our third party support, and we did get Fortnite, and we did get, Paladins, but we didn't get really, and FIFA. FIFA was announced, but they don't have a lot else to show.
Right.
So that's what I want to see. I want to see, hey, did you get well-rounded support from everybody? You're not going to get a lot, right? Because third parties are already wary of putting their products on Nintendo systems because they don't sell, or that's the argument. I think that is a shaky argument at best, despite what the numbers say. I think that good ports sell, and as long as they're not out there cannibalizing each other. So I think that you could only get for the rest of the year, 10 to 15 big third-party games, because if you average that out, that's like one a week from September through end of November, approximately, a little bit less, but so I think that they have to be really cognizant of that, and I'm sure Nintendo is too. I don't think Nintendo wants to say, "Hey, come put your game on here and have it doomed for failure." So I think that they will really look hard at that.
All right. Golfing Buffalo, I really appreciate you joining us. Stealth dropped early already, so Stealth, you can't hear this, but thank you for joining us as well. Golfing Buffalo, where can they follow you on Twitter?
They can follow me at Golfing Buffalo on Twitter.
All right, and Stealth is at stealth_. And that's it, at stealth_.
All right, well, thanks for having me on.
We hope that you've enjoyed today's discussion and that it will spark some healthy debate within the gaming community as to what direction the industry is headed in the near future. We would also like to once again thank our guests, Stealth and Golfing Buffalo, for taking the time to be with us today. We hope that you'll join us on NerdBacon's Twitch channel at twitch.tv/NerdBacon or on Facebook Live at facebook.com/NerdBacon for full coverage and live reactions of every single press event throughout E3 2018. I'm Dave the Watchman with NerdBacon.com. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, game tasty!